Good day, folks. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Zhiyun Smooth-X. This is a smartphone gimbal, and not only that, it is a super compact smartphone gimbal. This definitely has to be one of the smallest available on the market. I'm not really sure if it is or not, but it's definitely the smallest one that I've ever seen. Due to its small size, it makes it very convenient to travel with. You can actually fit this thing right in a pocket, but the more important question is, how well does it work? We're going to take a look at that here in this video coming up. We're going to test it out. We're going to talk about some of its features and some of its limitations. So let's just jump right in and take a closer look. So as stated here, this is the Smooth-X from Zhiyun. This was released a couple weeks ago, and pretty well it must be one of the smallest smartphone gimbals on the market. Smartphone gimbals have been around for several years now, and over the years they've come down in price. You can actually pick this up for $59. That's actually pretty incredible when you think about where they started from. Some of the earliest models for smartphone gimbals in the past started around $300, even $400. Now another nice thing about smartphone gimbals nowadays is that most models now fold up, and they're nice and compact. Early smartphone gimbals were big and bulky, and they weren't really easy and convenient to use. A lot of people opted not to bring them along if they're out sightseeing or maybe just going to the zoo for the day, just because they didn't want to have to carry it around. With something like this, you can actually fit it right in a pocket, and it's not very inconvenient to have around with you for the day. You can pull it out when you need it. Now, to start this video off, however, I do want to mention one thing. If you're looking for a smartphone gimbal because you're a filmmaker and you want absolute smooth footage, this is definitely not the gimbal for you. And the reason being, this is only a 2-axis gimbal. Now, with that said, I think the Smooth-X still has some value and still has a place in the market. So let's go ahead and we'll unfold it and we'll take a look at it here. Unfolding it is very easy, but it does feel a little bit awkward, almost to the point that you think you're going to break it. You start out by twisting the body there just like that to unlock the gimbal handle, and then it's a matter of twisting this top piece and folding out the arm. The next thing you're going to want to do is unlock the cradle here at the top, and you do so just by twisting it. The build quality on it seems decent. It's just plastic, but it does have a nice look to it. I like the gray color that they've chosen. I do believe this comes in a couple of color variants. I do like the gray color. I think it looks sharp. You can see here on the side we have a USB-C port, so that's kind of nice that it is USB-C. The cradle at the top here is spring-loaded, so your phone is held in by tension. It grips the phone really well. I never had any fear that my phone was going to fall out. I've had a couple different phones mounted in it. Here you can see a XS Max, an iPhone XS Max. I've also had my iPhone 11 Pro Max mounted in it, and there was no issue with it as well. It's a fairly large phone, fairly heavy, but it worked with it quite well. And even with those larger phones, you can still leave a case on it, and it mounts in there just perfectly, and I'll show you that here coming up as well. On the side of the handle, you can see we have a zoom function. Now, that only works when using the Zhiyun app. I've not been able to get that working in the native iPhone camera app. On the front here, we have a joystick, we have a record button, and we have a mode button. Now, the record and shutter button does work with the stock camera app that does come with an iPhone, and I'm glad it does, because personally myself, when filming on an iPhone, I just like to use the standard app. On the bottom there we have a 1/4-20, so if you want to mount it on a tripod, you're able to do so. Now if we look over here at the side on the arm of the gimbal, you can see that's where our power button is located, and we also have some LEDs to signify the battery level. Now it's kind of an awkward spot for the power button. When I first took this out of the box, it took me a few minutes to figure out how to turn it on. I'm looking around at the handle here looking for buttons for a power button. I guess I should have read the user manual, but I guess I'm guilty. I didn't read it first. Now, one nice feature of this is that you don't actually have to mount it on an extension pole if you want to get some extra reach. As you can see here, there's a built-in extension pole right to the handle, so that's definitely a nice feature. You're also able to tilt up the gimbal to get the desired angle that you want. So there are some nice features on this handheld smartphone gimbal, but like I stated already, this only has 2 axes of stabilization. We have our pan, there from side to side, and we have roll. There is no tilt stabilization, and that can be a big issue for a lot of people. Most smartphone gimbals, action camera gimbals, you always get that up and down motion when walking or even running. The tilt axis kind of helps absorb some of that. It's not a perfect thing, and it doesn't get rid of it altogether, but definitely when you don't have that tilt axis on there, the up and down motion when walking or running is much more prominent. So that leads to the question of, what is this gimbal useful for? Well, in all fairness, for an everyday gimbal, it actually does work very well. You'll see here coming up in some examples that it does help quite a bit. The problem with smartphones is that most of them do have stabilization built in, but it's not that great. If you're just out filming handheld, you're going to get some shake, you're going to get the camera going back and forth and that up and down. Mounting it in something like this, even though it only has 2 axes of stabilization, it does smooth it out quite a bit. Mounting the smartphone in the gimbal is pretty easy, and you can see here I do have a case on my iPhone XS Max. And then of course we have to balance it. And the only balancing you have to do is just make sure it's balanced in that cradle there. So you just have to slide it back and forth until it stays somewhat level. Then we can go ahead and power it on. And there we go. Now, one nice feature about this setup is you can go from landscape to portrait very quickly. Just by a double press, you can see that there. So if you're a person who likes to film stories for YouTube, for Instagram, or even TikTok videos, of course it formats better when you're in portrait mode. So that allows you to go back and forth very quickly without having to mess around with the gimbal. It has all the different shooting modes where you can lock it straight ahead or you can have it follow your hand movement. Now, unfortunately, before you can use this device, you have to activate it. In order to activate it, you must download the ZY Cami app. You have to create an account and then activate the device. It seems to be a trend that a lot of tech companies are requiring activation of their devices. I'm really not sure of the reasoning behind it. I'm not a big fan of that. If you use any of DJI products, you know that all their devices need to be activated as well. So that is a disadvantage, but unfortunately, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that going forward. Once you've downloaded the app, you've created an account, and you've activated it, right away it's going to ask you to connect to the device. So we'll pair it, and you can see there, just like that, we are now connected by Bluetooth. Once you're connected by Bluetooth, you can see here I've launched the stock camera app on the iPhone. We can use the shutter button to take a photo. We can slide over to video. We can stop and start recording video. But like I said here, this zoom button won't work on the stock camera app. Now here you can see I have the ZY Cami app installed. It gives us a lot of different options. Over here on the top right hand side, you can see here we have different stories we can film, kind of like pre-made templates. A lot of devices have that nowadays. You can see over here on the right hand side, it gives us all our different shooting modes. We have hyperlapse, time-lapse, slow motion, video, photo, pano, and then of course back to the smart mode. You can see here it has tracking. And as I move this around, you can see how it's going to track it. So that's kind of a handy feature. So that tracking feature alone is almost well worth the price. If you're a solo creator, you could have this mounted on a tripod. You could then set yourself to be tracked, move around in the camera, and the gimbal is going to follow you around. We do have gesture controls that you can turn on, so you can initiate recording and taking photos and different things like that with gestures. So yeah, it's got a lot of nice little features in it, especially if you're going to be using it for vlogging. Having that extension on there and being able to tilt it to the proper angle is kind of handy. Now, with all that said, most people are interested in what kind of footage it can create and how stable it is. So let's get into some samples here now. Okay, so we're just going to do a quick stabilization test. For this first test, I'm just going to hold the phone in my hand and we'll see what kind of stabilization we can get. It's pretty dark down here in this forest, so we don't have a lot of light to work with. So we'll just start here and we'll see what kind of stabilization we can get. So now we're going to use the Smooth-X, and this is where this thing really shines, is that it is truly portable. I just had this in my pocket. So that's definitely one benefit of it. It's easy to carry around and it doesn't add a lot of bulk, and you really don't know you're carrying it. So let's go ahead and we'll do another quick test here. So who is this gimbal for? Like I said, if you're a filmmaker and you need really nice smooth footage, this is definitely not the gimbal for you. There are better choices. If you just want to smooth out your shots a little bit with something that's compact, doesn't cost a lot of money, this is an excellent choice. It's not going to give you that ultra buttery smooth footage, but it definitely does make a difference. If you're a person who likes to vlog with your smartphone, something like this is also a good choice. Having that extension on there is quite handy, and a lot of people would make use of that. So in that aspect, you could think of this as a glorified selfie stick, just with the added bonus of stability. stabilization. I don't use a smartphone gimbal very much, but something like this, because it's so small, and just because it does help polish your video a little bit if you need it, I would definitely recommend it for the price. If it was any more money than that, I would probably say no, it's a pass, but for $59, if you just want to use it now and then just to smooth out your footage, then definitely it's well worth it. Now, one last thing I just want to show you here quickly before I go. You can see here I have the Rode Video Mic Me attached to it, the one with the lightning version. It just plugs right into the lightning port. So if you're a person who does like to do some vlogging, this is probably one of the easiest smartphone gimbals to attach a microphone and still have it work properly. And not only that, you can even still put it into portrait mode, and it works just fine like that as well. Well folks, that's basically it for my video. Hopefully you found this video informative. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and we'll see you in the next one.